What can you put with sea moss gel?
I have no idea. A piece of toast.
Mini ravioli?
Mini ravioli.
Which are great.
Can we do it on a pasta? How can we eat sea moss gel?
From Webisodes, this is GrowAbility, a digital documentary at the intersection of urban agriculture, food security, and community.
On this episode, Joe sits down with Mystery Furtado, an internationally trained registered nurse who formed Type Diabeat-It, a BIPOC-led diabetes organization.
Mystery also founded a BIPOC community garden, plus she's the founder of Granny P's Sea Moss Gel Company. Holly, isn't Mystery amazing?
So amazing. One thing Mystery talks about is how new Canadians don't always have access to culturally appropriate food. So they go to the processed stuff that can lead to health issues like diabetes.
I picked up on that too, and I think one of Mystery's biggest innovations is recognizing that urban agriculture is a great way to help any community access healthy foods.
Completely agree. But before we get to the goods on Mystery, a couple of notes for our audience.
First, if you like this podcast, please tell your friends.
Plus, rating and reviewing GrowAbility helps others find out about this podcast.
We're GrowAbility Pod at most major platforms, and we'll put the links in the show notes.
Our free, fresh and nutritious newsletter is a great way to stay in the loop. Sign up at growabilitypod.com.
And it works both ways. Send your questions and suggestions to joe@growabilitypod.com.
Siskins, the law firm, hosted us in their beautiful office for this series. Thank you so much to Siskins and the team that made it happen.
And now we're super happy to share my conversation with amazing Mystery Furtado. Mystery, I'm so pleased to have you here today. You bring a different lens for both urban agriculture and food security. So thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Our audience will hear a brief intro about you that we'll record separately, but I want to start with your work on diabetes prevention. Why is this work so important to you?
So diabetes is something very dear to my heart because I lost both my maternal and paternal grandparents to diabetes. And at the tender age of 8, I was giving insulin to my grandmother. So growing up, I always knew what it felt like as a family, as a caregiver, when someone has that diagnosis. And, at that age, not fully understanding why my grandmother had such, like a strict quote unquote diet, or why she couldn't eat some of the foods that I enjoyed as a kid.
What is Type Diabeat-It?
So Type Diabeat-It, we are now a charity, so I'm really excited to share that. But we started in 2018, and ideally, or what I envisioned at first, was to solely do relief work for Belize, where diabetes is top 2 cause of death. So I never imagined or phantomed that a developed country like Canada would need someone like me. But I was working as a clinical educator, and that's when I realized that there is a place for me in my second home, Canada, to actually get involved. So I realized that there's a lack of, cultural competency for diabetes care and even prevention for people that look like myself. So right away, I got the board, and shout out to my board for being very supportive of my crazy ideas. And I said, hey, let's start right here. Like, we have so much that we can do, especially looking at food. And I thought back to my grandmother when she came to visit me and how we would be driving all over to find specific foods. So I said, we have a real unique opportunity to address unhealthy eating as one of the behavioral risk factor for type 2 diabetes.
Did you have any resistance or challenge when you wanted to start Type Diabeat-It?
I would say yes.
Okay.
And I think some of it could be intentional. Some of it might not be, but I find that change is hard for everyone, and people are not used to faces like myself talking about needs of my community, right? They're used to it coming from a different source or a different person. So I think that was met with hesitation, and also this idea or this scarcity mentality that there's only space for one organization or one group of people. So a lot of it was, well, why you're doing that? We already have Diabetes Canada or GDRF, or why are you growing food? So many people, so many organizations growing food. So people didn't understand right away, the value that we brought or the perspective.
Type Diabeat-It does a lot of things. Let's unpack that.
So at its core, as I mentioned, is addressing unhealthy eating, right? So we grow food. We specifically grow African diaspora food because we know that food is a basic human need.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what you might call it in one culture, but the food is the same. So we specialize in growing things like okras, kalalo. We grow a lot of hot peppers, African eggplants. And then we also look at food that is similar across other cultures. So we don't grow as many like tomatoes per se or kale. We try to look at what is as nutrient packed and can also grow here in Canada. So a big part of it is, as I said, we grow food, we harvest the food. And then the tasty part is our food literacy, is that empowerment through food. We work with seniors, we work with older adults, youths and children, and we actually developed a curriculum. And this looks at the Canadian food guide, but with cultural lens.
How does food security aid in diabetes prevention or management?
Well, we know from many research articles that poverty has the greatest impact on overall health. So when you look at social determinants of health, your financial status plays a role. And if you're not able to afford food, that leads to so many other things, not just diabetes, right? It's that whole like mental breaking down of, maybe I can't be healthy because I can't afford quote unquote healthy food. So we've, put a spin on that whereby we feature recipes that are under $20 and that are plant-based, because I feel like there's this kind of scare or mentality that healthy is expensive. So then people don't, might see, well, I can't afford this. But if we kind of change the mindset and not use words like healthy or even the word diet, and we look more at nutritious, cultural, wholesome, balance, words that are more neutral to, make eating a beautiful experience and also something that's affordable. So food security is a big part of what we do. We provide over 200 food boxes a month to the ACB community.
How does the food box program work?
So we have a registration link on our website. And reason being is because as a non-for-profit and now a charity, we're not funded to do this work, right? The reason why providing food is so passionate to me is because I've had to access a food bank, right? And I think sometimes we may forget that no one migrates to Canada to end up on welfare or to go to a food bank. I am an internationally trained nurse. And, when I migrated with my ex-husband at the time, the goal was to get a job, right? And pay taxes like everybody else. Yeah. But that didn't happen. And I ended up on welfare and I had to go to food banks. And I understand that I didn't always feel welcome. I didn't feel like the food reflected me, right? Yes. And no offense to like cream of mushrooms or like a tomato soup, but I don't eat that, right? And there's other cultures that also don't eat these canned food. Yes. So you donate it back to the food bank because you don't use it. So I make sure that, the boxes that we collect, so we're part of the London Food Coalition. Yes. And we also work with Harvest Hands. And we try to ensure that all these boxes, you can go home and make an actual meal. So it's a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetable, because again, part of our work is to increase access to fresh produce.
And is food literacy a big part of that?
Yes. So these food boxes does not carry recipes like our previous food boxes did. And again, that's resources. The grant tapped out after the pandemic. So these are just boxes that you take home. But our food literacy, we partner a lot with local organizations like LUSO. We work with London Intercommunity Health Centre, Northwest Resource Centre. And through collaboration, because again, we don't generate revenues, we're able to run food literacy programs across the city and even do hot meal programs. So we feature recipes with everything that we grow in the greenhouse, including like tubers. So instead of maybe like potato, which is a simple starch, we talk about green bananas, which a lot of people don't even think you can eat. They only eat like the very ripe banana.
I'm learning something.
Exactly. So we feature the green banana because that's a great addition to potatoes. You can fry them, you can boil them, you can make a salad with them. We also feature like plantains and like sweet potatoes. So empowering everyone, not just people of color, in what else can I buy at the grocery store that might not be as expensive, but also nutrient dense and diabetes friendly. Yes. So our recipes won't alter your blood sugar.
Wonderful. You're an urban farmer.
I am.
Tell me about the London Community Garden.
So we started with just four rows at the London Food Bank. And now we're working on a 1.5 acre project. We have a partnership with Cardinal Fine Cabinetry. They're a 60-year-old cabinet, like high-end cabinet company in London. A shout out to Paul and Lori. Absolutely. And we've been able to use their unused land behind their business and convert it into what we're calling Harvest Haven. And we also have a greenhouse because we had a greenhouse at the Western Fair because we won second in Central about 2 years ago with the London neighborhood decision. So thank you to all the voters. And we now have a little bit bigger of a greenhouse and we're growing food right now only in the greenhouse because our water was installed late. We had to dig an in-ground well. So we have a man-made well and we're completely solar. So these investments took some time to, be ready. So right now we're only growing food in the greenhouse.
Wow. Is your farm exclusively for growing produce or does it have other purposes?
Right now it's exclusively for growing produce. We also do school trips. So last school year, we worked with Thames Valley District School Board and 2 of their elementary classes came out to the land. Because of the amazing cabinet company, Cardinal, we are able to use 2 of their showroom kitchens to run programs in there. So we've done okra canning, cranberry concentrate for kids. We're going to be doing a fruit-based ketchup, teaching kids how to make a healthier ketchup. Because which kid doesn't like ketchup, right? So it's open for trips, groups, community groups that might want to plant who wouldn't normally have access. But again, we're not so accessible, but we want to be as inclusive as possible, but solely planting and kind of educating.
I like this cabinet company, by the
way. Me too.
How is Type Diabeat-It working outside of Canada?
So right now it's mostly around advocacy, around like the literature and the reasons that we've created. So a lot of the recipe, our curriculum, and lots of manpower around just like the advertising piece for Belize. As of recently, we are 1 in 10 organizations across Canada to receive funding from public health agencies to further our mission. So we've been funded to grow the food, to harvest the food, and continue our food literacy.
I don't know when you sleep, but you're also an entrepreneur.
I am.
Tell me about Granny Peas.
So Granny Peas, my grandmother. So when she was alive, everyone called her Granny Peas. Actually stands for Granny Power. And she taught me everything that I know today. So her passion for growing food, I learned from her. So almost everything that I'm growing is something that I did in Belize as a child alongside her, because she always believed that the land and food will feed her generation. So I grew up with my grandmother on a farm and we would plant food. So when I came to Canada, that was something that was a burning passion of mine. But then I also wanted to further her knowledge for holistic medicine. So I started with a product called CMOS. So it's a trending superfood because of TikTok right now. Okay. And I make it into this consumable gel that you can eat directly or you can add to smoothies, tea, coffee, and it's very good for your gut health, immune system, collagen production. And we supply about 18 stores currently with our product.
I'm going to look for CMOS gel.
Now you have to look for CMOS gel. And we're launching gummies, CMOS gummies.
CMOS gummies.
Yes, because our current CMOS gel, we have the longest shelf life in Canada, tested at Fanshawe Lab, but it's 4 months in the refrigerator. So in contrary to what we think the health industry want, they actually want the food to last 1 million years on their shelves. So we found a a good alternative, which was gummies. So these are shelf stable for 1 year and all clean ingredients. So bladderwrack, elderberry, and ginger.
There's got to be a grand unification theory or plan going on. What is that?
So for like Granny Peas, I've been able to use the business to support some of the initiatives of Type Diabeat-It, right? So our food box is run solely because of Granny Peas, because Type Diabeat-It can't afford rent, a refrigerator, a deep freezer. So I use my personal vehicle to pick up food, plus our amazing volunteers to support the community. So the long term is to be able to have a hub where both these entities can coexist, because to do good work, you need money, which is a very hard and sad reality of the life and the society we live in, but it has to be sustainable. So the grand plan is to use Granny Peas to find ways to make Type Diabeat-It more sustainable.
The power of granny power.
Yeah.
What's the future of Type Diabeat-It?
The future, I would really like to partner. I would like to see more, multi-sectoral collaborations in London so that we can have a health hub that is reflective of the different cultures that live in London. Similarly to the GTA, they have a lot of culturally, grounded and culturally competent wellness hubs where you can come and get diabetes support, get foot care. Similarly to our Indigenous brothers and sisters where they have, an Indigenous-led health centers. I would really that's the goal we're working towards, is to be able to set up one of the first, Black-led health hubs here in London.
What role does community play in your work?
Community is everything. Community is why I'm here today. Community is how I met you.
Yes.
And despite some of the naysayers and systematic racism that I'm faced with every day, there's great people in this sector who've believed in what we're doing since day one, and they've rallied behind us and support us, that now we're growing, right? Now we're a charity. Now we have federal funding for about 4 years. Now we're running feeding programs in the summer, doing something like 700 hot meals, right? Wow. And that's all done through community. There's no salary. There's no funding for everything, like for 90% of the things that we do, because we have a fitness program with the YMCA that's free for older adults and seniors. And that happens once a week. We have a support group, and all these things are run by volunteers. So having volunteers give of their expertise and their skills for community. So by community, for community, that's amazing.
Can you talk about your experience as a Black entrepreneur in Canada?
Well, it's hard. It's very difficult. And again, I think it's because it's new territory. Yeah. And for whatever reason, people are just not aware of what it feels like to be on the other end. Right? So even getting into stores in London was met with a lot of hesitations, but there were good people who believed in what I was doing and gave me that stamp of credibility. So we're in Quartermasters in Wortley Village, and they're like the gurus of health stores in London. And, one of their workers, Jessie, she really believed in the brand, the cleanliness that I was offering, and also my community engagement, right? So I think it's hard. And I think also as a woman, systematically, I think wealth and knowledge and strength has always been kind of given to men.
Right.
So there's always that level of hesitation, but there's a shift happening where we have way more information and knowledge than our ancestors did. So I find that one of the best pieces of advice that I was given, and this is by Glenn Pearson from the London Food Bank, and he said, you try to remove the emotions out of things and talk about the facts. What is the precedence being set? And I feel like I've been able to use that and, try to articulate. Sometimes we have to code switch, which is something I think is not fair for people of color. But I find that as long as you're able to try as much as possible to remove emotion and look at people as a reflection of their own past experiences and trauma, and try not to take things personal, I think that is what has kept me going. Plus, I think ancestral strength from my grandmother. I know the higher purpose of why I'm here and what I'm doing. And my kids, creating a world where they can do anything. And for a little girl who wants to do this, like she'll see me and say, I can do this, because we're not represented in the non-for-profit sector and the health and wellness, sector either. So when you think of a farmer, Do you think of someone that looks like me?
I do now.
Now you do. When you think of canning, do you think of my grandmother? You probably wouldn't, right? But all cultures have preservation techniques. So the more I'm able to talk about this and bring light, I think this right here is the change that we're looking for, conversation. That's where it starts.
Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to talk about?
Well, we can talk for hours, but I think we covered a lot today.
We did cover a lot today, and thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
We have a final question. What keeps you growing?
What keeps me growing? Community. The faces, the smiles, when people come to pick up food boxes and they're next to tears, when I'm working with the kids in the school system, when we're in the elementary schools and they draw a picture of me and there's like, this is Mystery. And when they relate to the content that I'm offering, right? When I remember this summer, we were growing something, what we call fever grass, but it's actually lemongrass.
Okay.
It's very popular in Africa and the Caribbean and Latin America. And a mom came over to our feeding program. She saw the lemongrass, took it, and is like, I'm going home to make tea. And she ran home with everything that I brought. And to me, that is the power. Or like recently, we had the Muslim Wellness Center, the seniors, they came over. And we were just laughing and talking and realizing that we're not so different. Right. At the end of the day. And it might be a language barrier, but we're humans. Yes. And we all want to belong and feel connected. And I think that is what fills my cup.
We're a community.
Yes, we are.
Where can people find out more about the work that you're doing in Type Diabeat-It?
So they can go to our website at www.diabeat-it.ca. So there's a hyphen. Sorry, it's confusing. But they can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We have a newsletter as well. We try to, put out what we're doing. And we have a health fair coming up for Diabetes Month. We're working with the Middlesex London Health Unit. Yes. So many abbreviations. We're working with them this year and a couple other agencies to bring health support services more central. We're doing it at the Covent Garden Market and trying to break the barriers from, making health seem so distant and so hospital, but bringing health back to community.
That's where it is. That's where it should be, right? Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today and continuing to do the wonderful work that you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
GrowAbility is hosted by Joe Gansiflis and Holly Pugsley and produced by Joe Gansiflis and Adam Kaplan. Special thanks to this week's guest, Mystery Furtado. Lighting and camera design by Kevin Labont with production support from Oliver Gansiflis. GrowAbility's production was made much easier with the help of Jesse Chen, Terry Fujioka, Zach Grossman, Zachary Meads, Leo Shin, and Deborah Camargo from Fanshawe College's Broadcasting, Television, and Film Production Program. Thanks to Janice Robinson from Fanshawe for arranging for these students' invaluable participation. Holly Pugsley of Just Keep Growing provided the plants and made sure they looked great. Audience and Marketing Strategy by Japs Karmiglani with support from Dorantina Uka and Tess Alcock. Our theme music is Wandering William by Adrian Walter and can be found on Soundstripe. Thanks as well to Hubert Orlowski for providing technical and audio engineering advice to help our podcast sound great. Adam Kaplan, that's me, is Webisode's executive producer, and Sammy Orlowski is our senior creator. Special thanks to Jennifer Routley from Siskins the Law Firm for arranging to host us at their beautiful head office in downtown London, Ontario. GrowAbility is a Webisodes production and is produced with the support and participation of the team at The Patch and Hutton House.